Oh crap. Hey Marquez, remember when we used to film our videos with a smartphone?
Yeah, man, that was Unsane.
Shut up, we need to film this review.
So guys, we just saw Unsane, which is directed by one of the great directors, Steven Soderbergh. And this movie, we follow a girl named Sawyer Valentini, who has been wrongfully admitted into a psychiatric hospital. And she believes that an old stalker of hers is still stalking her inside of this hospital.
And one of the biggest selling points for this movie was that it was entirely filmed with an iPhone camera. And it's sad to say, but we unfortunately are in the minority here because we did not like this movie. And a lot of people, especially if you look at the Rotten Tomato score, last time I checked it was like 79%, but we did not like it.
Yeah, and unfortunately also to add on to that, its big selling point of using this iPhone to film the entire movie, I almost felt like it was a hindrance to the movie. I've actually seen some people go like, oh, you couldn't even tell it's filming an iPhone. You can tell it's filming an iPhone. It's very obvious that it's not using a regular camera, which isn't a bad thing. There's been movies, the end of the Florida Project used an iPhone. They did it correctly. There's been movies that they've used iPhones before this movie, but this movie just made a big deal about it. And it's just that something about this movie, the iPhone, the way they filmed it, I really didn't personally like it that much. I understand that they're going for a more personal style, maybe, like trying to get closer shots, but at certain times it felt like whenever they're filming with the iPhone, it almost felt like they're just filming regular shots, just they could do with a regular camera. And also, even some of the close-up shots were just kind of awkward looking. It didn't feel right at all.
Yeah, and it was very jarring, just the way it looked. Sort of like what Marquez was saying, the close-up shots looked sort of weird, and it sort of took me out of the movie a lot because it made you feel like you're just watching just actors and not actual characters. Because, like Marquez said, it feels really personal, and I feel like the iPhone camera made it too personal to where it just looked like sort of like a documentary, but at the same time it took away from the suspense that was supposed to be there in the movie.
The very first 10 seconds of this movie, I'm gonna say, it might have been a little more, I didn't count, but I'm gonna say probably around there, the very beginning scene, I will say I like that scene. It starts off a little neat and a little mysterious and with the narration, and that I like because I was watching like, oh, this movie seems kind of promising. It starts off kind of creepy, kind of weird, you know. But then after that is when it starts feeling weird. The biggest thing I felt like was they just didn't know how to make this movie correctly. I feel like the iPhone is just a conversation piece. You know, they could have filmed it with a regular camera and people would have seen it, but nobody would have been talking about it. But they made this deal about it using an iPhone, and so everybody's talking about it. In fact, whenever you watch reviews, they just talk about that all the time. That's like, they bring that up over and over again. I was watching a video and they're talking about how you could notice the actress's her accent slipping sometimes, and the guy's like, oh, well, it's filmed on an iPhone, so of course it's gonna slip.
And then seeing her in this movie, does her accent slip? Yes, it does. Does it matter? No. This movie's made with an iPhone, of course it's gonna slip.
I don't understand what filming on an iPhone has to do with the actress's voice slipping, but you know, I don't know. I just feel like it's the iPhone, this is a really cool thing to think about. I just feel like it's kind of blinding people to the actual quality of this film.
I wouldn't bring it up so much if it wasn't just such a huge hindrance to the movie. Like, I honestly think I would have enjoyed this movie a little bit more if it hadn't been filmed on iPhone.
And at times you can also tell they're trying to make you feel weird and offsetting. And I can understand that, but at the same time, the big thing about this movie was this movie actually made me feel almost nothing at all. I felt nothing towards characters, and I felt nothing towards suspense. I just like didn't care about anything that was actually going on.
Yeah, this movie's supposed to be a horror and thriller, and I honestly did not feel any emotions that you're supposed to feel while watching those movies. And like I said, it even felt like a documentary, and that you're just watching literally actors in a movie and not actual characters.
Yeah, and the thing about this movie is the acting isn't bad. The acting from the main actress, I feel like her acting is actually pretty good. I really actually do want to see her in more things to come because I feel like she has potential. But something about the direction of this movie and something
the
about
writing.
and the writing, the dialogue, something about all of it just almost made her acting did not seem as good as it actually was. And I could spot out how good her acting was, but she could only do so much with it. The acting overall from the rest of the people is at times, most of the people, it's very mediocre. It's very just baseline acting, and sometimes it's actually pretty bad. Overall, the acting is just nothing special, or for me to actually just look at and say maybe this actor could have saved the movie.
And one thing that made that the acting even more noticeable was a random cameo that was only like 4 minutes long from Matt Damon. Like, why the heck was Matt Damon in this movie?
The big thing about that is some movies have tried to do this before, where they have all these actors that aren't very known, which is fine. I like whenever movies don't have very known actors. But then you put a random, very big actor in the middle of it all. He just kind of shines and kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. And it's kind of ridiculous.
And especially knowing that the budget for this movie was $1.2 million, and that's it. And knowing Matt Damon, how big of an actor he is, he's not going to be a cheap actor to get. So you just know that most of their budget went to getting Matt Damon just for those 4 minutes. It's almost like they started off with the idea of getting Matt Damon for this movie, and then they just spent their whole budget on that, and then they were just left with having to use an iPhone camera to film the movie.
And what kind of upset me about this movie is I actually love the idea of this movie. The idea of this movie is very interesting. In fact, I had never seen a trailer before this, but I had only heard what it was about. And the summary, the synopsis of this movie is actually very interesting. Even the filming with an iPhone is actually an interesting idea. It's very ambitious, it's very respectable, and I like all of it. It's an original idea. Everything about it is an original idea. Everything about it is very ambitious. It's just that a lot of things, they just didn't go in the right way with this movie. A lot of times there's things in this movie that don't really even make a lot of sense. I don't really want to say too much because I don't want to spoil too much of this movie, just in case you want to go see it, which a lot of people seem to like it, so maybe you'll like it. But I just felt like a lot of things that were done in this movie were just not done correctly at all.
After watching it, I was sort of about to give, because I didn't know who directed this movie, so I was just figuring that it was like some amateur who, this is like his first big movie to make. And I was going to give him sort of a pass on some of the things that happened, some of the writing problems, some of the directing problems, if it was an amateur filmmaker. But this is Steven Soderbergh, who's made the Ocean's movies, Side Effects, Contagion. So it's like a pretty veteran director. So he should have been able to form a better movie.
This movie sometimes feels like a found footage movie. I know it wasn't a found footage movie, but there are certain times that it felt like a found footage movie. But since it's not a found footage movie, it just felt awkward. All the setups for this movie just felt weird.
So can we talk about the music now?
Oh, yeah.
There's 3 soundtracks pretty much that they used throughout this entire movie. One was a creepy sort of mysterious music that they should have used a lot more than they did, but they only used it a few times and it actually fit. The second one was some kind of hip-hoppy, weird kind of style music, and it didn't really fit at all, and it honestly felt like just a free track that you can find on YouTube. But then the third one was, I swear, every time they played, which they played it several times, and every time they played it, the first note or two sounded exactly like the music from the movie The Room, which we have up there. And every time I heard it, I was like, "Oh, is this a theme from The Room?" But it didn't turn out to be. But every time I kept thinking that.
And something about this movie loved the hip hoppy kind of upbeat song. And they always use it in the most ridiculous times. I would have much rather them not use music at all than to use this song. Because this song, and at the very beginning you hear it, and I didn't like it at the very beginning, but I was like, okay, whatever, fine. It's the very beginning of the movie, the feeling's a little happier at the very beginning. But then she goes to the psychiatric hospital, and they even use it a few times there. They even use it at a time whenever they're pushing her down onto her bed, trying to lock her up, and they play this music, and it just takes you out of it. You're watching and you're like, the song is just so distracting that you don't even care what's going on with her at all. I'm just thinking to myself, why? Why are they using this song at all? They don't know how to use the music in this movie whatsoever. And when it comes to Claire Foy's character, Sawyer, she doesn't really seem like a character. A lot of people in this movie don't really seem like characters. They have something distinguishable about them, but they don't feel like full characters, which is a reason why it's hard to not only care about what's going on in the movie, but it's hard to care about these characters and what they're going through and what happens to them in this movie. It's hard to care about any of it. And whenever it comes to Sawyer, you don't really learn much about her, almost at all. At the very beginning, you learn that she's almost pretty much doing really good at this job, maybe even up for promotion. And you learn more about this girl, and she starts talking about a stalker later on. You start learning about this, but they don't really say much about her until randomly there's a moment whenever she's talking to her mom, and you hear one little thing that she's gone through in her life. And I'm not going to bring it up, but there's one. It's a big thing that she's gone through in her life, but they bring it up this one time, and they just pass it on. And they act like it's really nothing, and they just do it just so we can, I don't know, grasp onto her as a character. But it really wasn't enough for me to grab onto her at all.
Throughout this movie, Claire Foy's character just starts attacking like a bunch of people just randomly at random points in the movie. And it starts becoming sort of comical at times, how many times she just starts punching people in the face, especially when she knows that she needs to be on good behavior so that she can be let out from the mental hospital, and she just continues to start punching people in the face. And I know that we bagged on this movie for pretty much this entire video, but there were glimpses of little things that we did enjoy. Just maybe not like entire scenes, but little snippets of certain scenes and acting. And like we said earlier, we did like the idea for the plot and the idea of using the iPhone camera to film it. It just wasn't done very correctly.
So guys, it's hard for us to say to not go see this movie because it seems like a lot of people actually do like this movie. I think me and Zach are mainly in the minority. If you go on Rotten Tomatoes, which I'm not saying to base your movie watching decisions on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm just saying that a lot of people are liking this movie, including Brittany, my cousin, his sister, really did like this movie. She actually felt the connection to the characters that I couldn't figure out how in the world she felt. So, I mean, if you want to watch this movie, go ahead and watch it. I mean, it's harmless. I mean, go and just go watch it. I absolutely hated it, so I'm not going to say much more about that.
And I'm honestly considering, which there's still a lot more of the year left for horrible movies to come out, but at this point in the year, I'm honestly considering putting this in my worst movies of 2018 when we filmed that. And I'm not really trying to exaggerate. That's just how awful I think this movie was.
And we've said this before, but we just want to reiterate it, that me and Zach do not discuss our what grades that we're going to pick together. What we do is we choose what grades we want to do individually, and then we show it to each other at the same time, and that's our grade. But me and Zach actually did pick the same grade for this movie, and we are going to say that Unsane is 20% awesome. So guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe unless you hated this video, because you might love this movie. Also, comment below and tell us if you love this movie. And if you love this movie, tell us why, because we are actually trying to figure out what the appeal of this movie actually is, other than the iPhone. Is there anything about this movie that really you love, something you really connected with in this movie? Let us know, because we really want to know.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2awesomemen.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.